palate?
If you would like to, please do. I think the sound quality seems all right as it is, but
okay, I'll leave it.
Whatever you're most comfortable with.
Okay.
Vanessa, I would just like to really thank you so much for your time in joining us this evening. The Guild is absolutely thrilled that you have so kindly offered to share your time with us this evening to talk about your amazing new book. It is absolutely beautiful. I've been admiring my copy. I've been reading it, enjoying it. It is such a interesting book, and it was out at the start of the month. I think it was the 3rd. Vanessa, I would really like to talk to you about this book in your own words this evening, and we'll go through and talk about the book for a little while, and then open up to some questions at the end, if that's okay with you. What it would be really nice to do to start with, as this book is so new, I'm sure some people have been enjoying it like me, and some people are still yet to buy it. Maybe you could start by telling us a little bit about this book in your own words.
It's a sister book to the Sourdough School bread book. And if anyone who knows, when you write a book, you put all your ideas down. And I went to talk to Kyle about it, and she kind of really, well, firstly, she made me write food for thought first. She was like, you're not writing a sourdough book until you've done this one, which actually, in retrospect, she was right. She was like, look, broaden out and then narrow down, which was fantastic advice. And I threw my ideas and what I wanted to do down, and really and truthfully, it's almost 5 volumes. So this one was part of the original book, and we split it away. It's quite fascinating when you look at how a book develops and how it comes about. So we actually took the original book and split it up almost into volumes. So I've actually got in my head right now, and I'm writing, of course, book number 5. And this particular book concentrates on 4 really main aspects. So the first one is that sourdough is incredibly well known as bread, but is actually incredibly delicious and just as nourishing and good for you as the sourdough in bread, if not more delicious, because when you long slow ferment your breads, you have the same kind of transformation of the flour and this wonderful flavour that comes with these esters, but you also get the degradation of the gluten. You get, again, more bioavailability of the key nutrients, and it creates these very complex flavours. But what I found particularly fascinating was that all of the evidence about the sourdough process affecting the gut microbiome and an increasing diversity I was able to put to the test. So I actually didn't just write this book, but I also tested it on, I'm not allowed to say human guinea pigs because apparently that's not politically correct anymore for animal rights activists, but human test subjects, because we know that the fermentation is wonderful, especially for cakes and bakes, because it increases flavour. Increasing diversity, there's a whole new concept in here which I think you will find very interesting, which is the botanical blends. Again, increasing diversity, we mill a meadow. And this is an entirely new concept that I've been working on. I've had to have all my students here at the Sourdough School sign a non-disclosure for the past 3 years, because they weren't allowed to discuss it because of the secrecy of launching this book. And I was specifically interested in the gut microbiome and how that affects mental health. A lot of the work and the research I've done on the gut microbiome points that The gut microbiome is central to the immune system, but it is also central to mental health. And we know for an absolute fact that the what we eat affects the way and the type of metabolites our gut can produce. And what really blew my brains out, Charlotte, was that when you eat the right food, your gut microbes manufacture many chemicals, but three key ones that affect the way we feel are dopamine, feel good hormone, serotonin, the happy hormone, we all know about this one, I think it's common, and also GABA, which calms down simply put, calms down the speed at which the neurons fire in the brain and calm down anxiety. And so what became very clear during my years of researching was that we're starving our microbes of the food, the fibre that they need to make these really important chemicals that your brain needs. So what you eat, we now know when you read Tim Spector's work, Professor Tim Spector, Felice Jecker, John Cryan with his work on psychobiotics, we know that your food affects the way you feel. So I actually gathered, it took me 3 or 4 years to gather all the evidence and gather all of the research, and then test and develop my approach using botanical blends and fermentation to create, I guess, recipes such as the ultimate donut, which really I think is a kind of game changer, because you've got this long, slow fermented chocolate and rye donut with this wonderful kind of rich, high polyphenol compote with a live probiotic rich creme pâtissière, which I don't think anyone's ever done a live fermented creme pâtissière as far as I know. And so when you're feeling a little bit kind of low or stressful, or we know that mental health is more important than ever, especially with what's going on in the world right now. If you turn to something that's a normal treat, which we all want to, let's face it, you're actually further exacerbating the negativity. So you're raising your blood sugars, you are starving your microbes of the fibre, and you are further exacerbating the situation. Whereas when you reach for one of these bakes, you're actually nourishing yourself. And I think that's the key word. This is a book about nourishment. It's about nourishing your gut and nourishing your mind. And I think it's really time that we re-examine the way that we bake and really change the paradigm of bread and flour as well, because we have the knowledge. It's just simply about applying it now. So this book is, I guess, an answer to so many of the problems that we face in a broken system. So I think that's probably a summary of the book. It's an answer with evidence and an application of knowledge from the research papers into your mouth and to your gut and to your brain.
It is an extraordinary book, and I mean, I've had it for 10 days now. And I really feel as though I've sat down, I've had about 2 hours with it, and I feel as though I need to spend so much more time absorbing all the information. What is so interesting about this book is it is such a deviation from a standard recipe book. It is full of so much information about what is behind the fermentation process, the gut microbiome. There is so much information and science in this, and so much with each recipe that accompanies it in terms of the benefits that it offers and how it does that. It is absolutely extraordinary. Such interesting combinations of ingredients as well. There are things that I have not seen been done before in this. It is such a massive shift from basically every other book I've seen on sourdough, which are mainly sort of like technique based, aren't they?
Yeah, it's I think it's very interesting. I was talking about this afternoon, Charlotte. I come at this from a slightly different angle. I came at it from 20 years of researching into sourdough because I couldn't eat bread. I come at it from an angle where I'm an anarchist, and I am someone who believes that to change, you need to provide a solution. And I often will go to these conferences and I listen to these lectures of people moaning about a broken system, talking about the negativity of pesticides. We know glyphosate, for example, reduces diversity in the gut microbiome. We know, for example, that the Chorleywood bread making system and the current system of using baking powder keeps the starch in a way that actually raises blood sugar quite quickly. But nobody really wants to change. I mean, all you do is you feel bad, and you still eat your donut, and you still eat your cake, and you still want a treat, and you just think, ugh. And moaning about a system is very easy. We can all really slate the system because it's right in front of us and it's not right. But actually, to find something and write something that inspires, that challenges, that questions, that provides concrete information, and I back this up with, there's actually about 440 studies that took me 5 years to add to the database that I share openly. It's an open database of all my research. And then to actually test it on a panel of people in a dietary intervention study, I felt was actually a completely new way, and it's frightening. It's scary. I'll be honest, the publishers were and have been justifiably excited, but also they had reservations, as you might expect, because this isn't, it's breaking a mold on about 4 different levels. It's looking at cutting edge science, it's challenging people to ferment cakes, it's talking about symbiotic eating, of combining positive probiotics along with the prebiotics. And I go into the detail where I actually name the gut microbes, what they do, what chemicals they produce, and how they do it, so that you're not just eating a recipe, you're actually understanding it on a whole new level. And I think that is the way that we bring about change, is to inspire and to create the solution, not just to moan about what's going on in the world.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about your personal journey, Vanessa, because you've obviously gone from opening the Sourdough School, you know, really, really a unique centre of learning in the UK, which, you know, has been completely sold out since you opened, and the journey from the baking through the research to, I understand you're doing a PhD at the moment. Can you tell us a bit about your journey from sort of interest in baking and your lifelong love affair with baking, and looking at the whole process in more detail?
Well, you're right that we're sold out. We're actually sold out right now. All our courses are sold until April 2022. So we're international. Most of our students, not all of our students, come from all over the world, which with COVID, I'm not teaching again until April. It's one of the reasons we're sold out, because I pushed everything back a year. My journey. It started in southwest France. I was a little girl, and my parents bought a house that was just a few yards away from the local bakery. And I thought initially it was the smell of bread that woke me up, but it wasn't. It was the smell of wood smoke, and it curled its way through the pigeonholes in my bedroom. And I would wake up and creep down these wooden stairs and climb out of the first floor window. I must have been so determined to get to this bakery, Charlotte. And I would shimmy down, always scrape my knee, I've always had a scraped knee, run down the alleyway in the pitch black. And I remember there were cows in the cow shed, and I would have been about 10, maybe 11. and they would make a little noise, and I would, oh my God, it was like the devil was there. And I would run and I would belt down this alleyway, go left, past Madame Platt's, past the shop, across, and there was this bakery, and it was lit up like in the dark, and I would bolt into the door, and I can remember now the bell, and I'd smash through the doorway like and the bell would go ding ding ding, and it was just the most extraordinary, because I was safe in this bakery, and it was pre-health and safety, and this incredible baker would be sort of smoking a Gauloise while he was on his mix and he would be mixing his bread, and I was allowed to play, and I was allowed to mix the dough, and I mean every year. And then in the end I ended up training as a baker, and hello sweet pea. And I ended up training as a baker in England. Actually, I did 2 years in England, then went back to France, and I carried on my training in southwest France in a bakery called La Tour de Dantin in Terrasson-les-Milieux. And I then came back to England, and I started a career here baking, and I was finished by 9 o'clock in the morning, because I was baking. I was actually in a hotel in Leicester, and I saw a course, and I thought, oh, I can do this course, I'll be finished by the morning. So I also did a degree course in psychology of human communication. So I was working, for, I guess, long hours, but I was chefing and baking, and they were normal hours at that time. And this is where the key change happened, Charlotte. I had my wisdom teeth out, and I was given a dose of antibiotics called metronidazole, and our in-house GP here actually counted up the number of antibiotics I had about 4 years ago, and we counted I'd had 57 lots of antibiotics. And after that dose of metronidazole, I literally went, almost instantly I couldn't eat bread. And not just bread, I couldn't digest wheat. And what I now know is I had every aspect of gluten intolerance. I had non-celiac gluten sensitivity as well as IBS. To cut a long story short, I actually went to the doctors. I was told to avoid bread, and for 4 years I didn't eat any bread. I was given a prescription bread. And I went back to southwest France, age 27, and walked past this bakery, and Hervé was there, and he saw me, and my husband was on a run, or else maybe this would never have happened. And he pushed this warm miche into my hands, and I just went, oh, and I clutched it, ran across the square, past, the Madame Platt's, up the alleyway, and oh my God, I always describe this as a scene after 9.5 weeks. There was me, there was the sourdough, and I just devoured it. And my husband walked in, and there was crumbs, and there was butter, and there was Marmite, and I was like, oh, this is so awful, I'm going to be so ill. And I wasn't. So I basically devoured my own body weight in French bread for, 2 weeks. Came back to England, went to the supermarket, bought some bread, and boom, I was in bed. I was lying in bed looking like I had eaten a football. I was rolling around moaning. I had the most horrific digestive issues. My head was fuzzy, I couldn't think, and my joints, I couldn't close my hands. And I lay there, and I won't tell you quite what I thought, but it was something along the lines of what is going on. So I went to see the doctor, and I said to my GP, why is this going on? Why can I just digest sourdough, but I can't digest anything else? And I didn't actually have the word for sourdough at the time. It was French bread. It was pain de levain or pain de campagne, because I didn't know the word for sourdough. It wasn't in my dictionary, even though it was sourdough. I just didn't have the name for it. And he leaned back in his chair, and this was the pivotal moment in why we're talking, because he leaned back in his chair and he stroked his chin, and he looked incredibly wise. And then he just said, I've got absolutely no idea. And it made me, can't tell you. I was like, well, why don't you have any idea? What do you mean you have no idea? And that was a trigger moment for me, because I was so incensed, and so I knew that something in the French bread was different. And cut to 20 years later, I was teaching, and I ran here the course for the Royal College of General Practitioners in Nutrition and Digestibility of Bread. And I will have behind me here 12 GPs, and I will be teaching them. And I think that that absolute determination, and it's funny because we met 13 years ago, and it was very interesting because sourdough was only one of the things that I just incorporated into what I was doing. And suddenly it was Dan Leppard, and he was like, Vanessa, just after I published my first book, and he just said, Vanessa, you really need to concentrate on just one thing and make it sourdough. So you can thank Dan Leppard for being a fantastic mentor. He was incredibly good with me, and he too was also one of the first forerunners of sourdough in the UK, and that's why we had connected. And he, like me, was sort of baking it back in the early 90s, and the rest really is history. I started with a bag of flour at my kitchen table. You've been, I don't know how many years ago, when I was in the kitchen.
Wonderful.
I didn't have the school bill, and I literally started, and I don't want to lie, I didn't make a profit for the first 6 years. I don't want to, you know, I've been obsessive about my subject to the point where I was called beautifully eccentric. And I suppose I knew that it was gut microbial issue, and really meeting Tim Spector back in 2016 was one of the pivotal moments. Tim actually identified that my gut microbial diversity was less than 2% diversity, and that I was actually bored. I mean, I had 3 gut microbial specialists not really understand how I was in health. I think it's fair to say that it was more than just sourdough. It was also the way I eat, which is through I was borrowing a lot of microbes. So almost everything I eat, including wine, chocolate, tea, sauerkraut, kimchi, cheese, was all fermented, because it was really the only thing I could stand. And then one of my students actually ran a gut gut transplant clinic, and asked me if I would be a guinea pig. Again, I'm not allowed to say that, am I? Asked me if I would be a test subject, and I said yes. So I had, in 2017 and 18, I had 12 over the year full gut microbial transplants. I've had a full gut microbiome transplant.
Wow.
So, and that was a game changer as well. So a lot of things changed when my gut microbiome was transplanted. So that was a pivotal moment. And I think really being immersed in the function of the gut microbiome and understanding its importance really it changes human history, Charlotte. We understand something that we didn't understand. And suddenly you've got cardiologists who are saying, actually, you know, when your heart is inflamed, then the inflammation starts, it actually is in the gut. And the gut is actually where your start point and what you feed your gut. And the thing is, it's so easy to make that change. It's not like I'm asking you to change your eye color or grow a third ear or have 3 legs. I'm asking you to eat in you know, beautifully delicious, nutritious, nourishing, easy bread and cakes and bakes. So it's not punishment. It's not like, you know, I'm having to make you eat a lettuce leaf, you know, or something, you know, that isn't utterly delicious, or it wouldn't be in the book. So I guess I think it's not a difficult thing to persuade people to eat beautiful bakes. No. But it is a way of applying science. So these fantastically complex, beautifully written, incredibly well-researched papers that read like Chinese when you first read them, I learned to translate them into recipes, and that's what I do.
Amazing. Let's talk a little bit about some of the practical elements of baking sourdough and using it in sweet baking. What advice do you have for anyone who is starting to bake the sourdough from scratch. We were just talking about this before you joined the call. You know, a lot of people really want to get involved with sourdough, but still feel intimidated by it. Do you have any tips you can share?
Don't muddle up the science with how easy it is. You know, it's almost better not to read all this science. I have a massive political belief in sharing that knowledge, and so I have three videos on my sourdough.co.uk website in which I go into huge and detail on the videos on how to start a sourdough starter, where I give all the tips, such as using organic flour, using the water temperature at the right temperature, and refreshing frequently when you first start it. I then have another really lovely video on how to maintain your starter, because creating and maintaining are two different things. And I have the easiest 2 recipes you'll ever find. I have a tin bake, which is what I would advise people to start with to begin with, to build your confidence up. A tin is like a corset and it will hold it all up. And then the bowl is a very simple bowl. There are hundreds of comments on there saying how successful you are with it. And I think my advice is this: don't overcomplicate it by reading every single person that you ever meet, because it's like learning every single language from, you know, from all sort of different people. Stick to one person. It doesn't have to be me. It could be Dan Leppard. It could be Emmanuel Hadrian-Joey. It could be Richard Bertonet. It could be, you know, there are some seriously good sourdough teachers out there, but pick one, stick with them and master their recipe. Often people get intimidated and confused because they're going, oh, Richard does this and Emmanuel does that, and Dan, and they mix it all up, and you're like, that's not how it works. We all have a system, and it's a bit like painters. There's no right, there's no wrong, there's just a way of doing something. And then you don't go to the National Gallery and go, yeah, Monet's rubbish, we're just gonna, you know, Turner's great. You just go and look at different artists. They do things different ways. And then stick to the same flour. Go and find a flour, you know, or a couple of different flours, a wholemeal and a white, a strong white, preferably organic. Stick to them and master them, because swapping around all the time will never. I mean, I didn't swap my flour. I did 3 years of baking in a bakery, and let's face it, we never changed our flour once. We did the same thing day in, day out, and it's like learning a musical instrument, and people expect that they're just going to bake it sourdough right the first day. Well, they're not. No more than you're going to pick up the violin and play, you know, I don't know, Fourier's, you know, I don't know, Verdi's, I don't know, Verdi's sort of 3 seasons on the first time you pick one up, or the second or third. It takes time. And my last piece of information, Charlotte, is enjoy it. Oh, the process of learning is the joy. The perfect loaf isn't there. It doesn't exist. If I make the perfect loaf, I'm putting my apron down and I'm retiring. I'm done. I don't want to make the perfect loaf. Who wants anything to be perfect? What an illusion. What a ridiculous thing to do. Don't be silly. The imperfect is where you learn. And the joy of baking is in learning something new every time you bake.
Absolutely.
There is no perfection. It's just an illusion.
And in terms of suppliers, you've obviously got your preferred suppliers in the book. Am I right in thinking you use Gilchester's flour?
Yeah, I mean, he's another extraordinary man, Andrew and Billy. Andrew's done his PhD in wheat and soil health, and the interplay between how the grain, when you use organic systems, in fact he goes beyond organic, the grain is actually more nourishing. And one of the amazing videos that we on the Sourdough Club, which is my online teaching, have this fantastic video that Andrew lectures for an hour on how his grain and the way he grew it is more nourishing. And I think that's what it comes back down to. that intense agriculture actually is, and in the intense agricultural system is actually reducing the nutrients in the grain. So looking at the whole system, when you start baking and you start baking sourdough, it's a catalyst, and suddenly you're looking at the butter and you think, oh, those cows grass fed, and suddenly you want to know about the jam and the cheese and the community around it. And then, well, what about the soil and where did it grow? And suddenly, I think sourdough bakers are actually all really food activists. We're all anarchists, and we all like to know a lot more about our food. And so it attracts the kind of person that doesn't just ask questions, but pushes for answers. And I think that's really important. So yes, I use Gilchesters. I actually think they're one of the most just fantastic suppliers that you could ever meet, and I would recommend them until the cows come home. I think they're amazing.
Yeah, it's stunning flowers.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the sourdough club again, Vanessa. So on your website you have, as you mentioned, the free core technique videos people can access, but you also share your tuition through the sourdough club. So on that website, you have your video masterclasses, your recipes, your formulas, tuition, and lots of further opportunities to connect with other bakers. Yeah. And that's a subscription service that you're offering a guild discount for as well.
It's 10 years old now. Diana Henry actually called it 5-star service. It was... It started in the very first instance, as you might recall, as a support system for my own students, and I would write each week for my students. And we were asked if we could extend it to people who couldn't get here, and then now it's the most incredible base of knowledge and videos, and I'd literally pour my knowledge in. So all of the botanical blends there, the recipes, the sweet, I mean, they're like the book but on steroids, because you don't have a page limit and you can link, and I link each studies, I link the glossary entries, I link the recipes, the techniques, the videos. We put videos up like how to mill a botanical blend. We have other tutors tutoring, so for example Adam Pagor from Grain and Half Bakery in Whitstable, he actually did the baguettes video, because he's actually a better baguette baker than I am. He's actually probably a better baker than I am, actually. But it's a knowledge hub. And at the moment, I'm really excited, and I'm going to let you in on a secret. I'm just right now about to launch a milling hub. And we're currently, one of my team who's in the USA is actually helping fill my database. We were adding central milling on this afternoon so that people can actually connect directly to the farmers. The Gilchesters are on there. And we'd like to make, it's very difficult to make the connection between the baker and the farmers, and also the millers that are actually supporting farmers. So the way to change the system is actually to support each other, and that means connecting each other. So I'm just literally in the middle of building this hub. I think the milling hub will be launched in the next week or two, and then people will be able to add their own sources. It's not a flour hub. I'm not interested in flour. I'm interested in the grains, the botanicals. You see, we mill flowers and herbs and spices and leaves and roots, and we mill the whole day when we bake here. So,
that's amazing.
I
just think it's important to just explain a little bit more about the botanical blends for people who haven't seen the book. So in the book there are 10 different botanical blends, and these blends are your base mixes for flowers that are used in different recipes, and they are really varied, aren't they? It's extraordinary range of ingredients. You know, the meadow, your blend number 2, I've got it in front of me, there's about 10 different ingredients in there, and that will just add to the diversity of it all. So that's what we're referring to with the botanical blends.
Yeah, each bake has a diversity score. And I think what's really key is that we know that nourishing the gut microbiome, the wider the diversity of your food, the wider the diversity of your gut microbiome. The wider the diversity of your gut microbiome, the more robust your health. So it came to me, I was in Italy and I was standing in a meadow. It was about, I don't know, the first time was about 4 years ago, and everyone was getting very excited about the wheats. And they were looking at the different wheats, and there was just some fantastic, there was Senatore Capelle, there was beautiful Italian durum wheats, and there was all sorts in this field. And then I stood there and I just saw the whole field. It was almost like a vision. And I saw everything, and it was almost like an overload, Charlotte. I can't really explain it, but there was the roses and the rose hips, and there were these amazing, there was this wild oregano at my feet and wild mint, and in the margins of the field there were these there was barley and oats and rye, wild oats, and there were olive trees. And suddenly I saw this whole meadow, and this suddenly monoculture. I was like, what on earth are we doing? Why on earth are we milling our food with this monoculture? Triticum astavitum is bread wheat, and when you only feed your gut microbiome with just bread wheat, you're just feeding one layer. And I was talking the other night to Tim Spector about this, and when I explained to him that we actually here we created these botanical blends, it was very difficult to narrow them down to 10. I actually have lots more than 10, because my initial approach was I was just milling as I felt like it. But to do a book, you have to formalize it. And a wonderful friend of mine, Alice de Beer, came over, and we spent 2 weeks formalizing them, because I had to write them down, because they were all just how I never bake the same bread twice. And why would I? You know, what's here on the day? There could be tangerines, there could be saffron, it could be cardamom, it could be oats, barley, rye, it could be, you think there's only 64 notes on a piano and you come up with a number one hit each week. I mean, good grief. I mean, think how many ingredients that you can suddenly mill, because there's coffee, there's tea, and all of these plants, these plants bring these flavonoids and polyphenols, and most importantly, diversity and flavour to what we bake. And suddenly these botanical blends and reappraising what flour actually is was a complete game changer. And I think it's been one of the things that people have been most excited about. And we've got not shy of about 350,000 followers on our social media on Instagram now, between the 3 accounts. And all I've been doing for the past week is actually sharing posts on our stories of people going, whoop, whoop, milling roses, milling cardamom, milling cocoa nibs, and the whole world's just I mean, watch out. I mean, I feel, you know, I don't know, the pets better watch out, or somebody will be milling cat hair next or something. It's like, if you can mill it, it's going in. And I actually am really, really thrilled with how the bakers have taken to this concept like a duck to water. And the anarchist in me is like, oh yeah, goodbye monoculture, hello diversity. And that is a key to this book, is actually sharing that approach. And it is a game changer.
Yeah, it is. And it is a truly unique book on the subject. I have read a lot, and it is so different. And I really deeply feel the need to sit down and absorb all the information.
I really am pleased, Charlotte, because it's I think some people were overwhelmed by it, and I had feedback from, obviously when you launch a book you have PR, and some of the PR feedback was that the nationals, kind of the run of the mill printing of the book in it as a national run, the journalists were not really knowing what to do with it, because it isn't an approach that's been done before, and it breaks a mold on about 4 different levels. And I was like, well, why, you know, if you're going to break a mold, you may as well smash through a few of them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We have just had a message. We've had a couple of people who've got to think about making a move because of the time. Can I open it up to some questions now, Vanessa, please?
Yeah, of course. You want me to
Let's
put the
see.
light on, or is this light okay? I knew
No,
it was
it's
dark,
lovely.
but...
Thank you. It's lovely. If anyone has a question to ask Vanessa, please fire away. Now is your time.
I have some questions.
Oh, hello, Sue.
Yeah. Can I ask you, you mentioned all this research, and you said it's available. Where can one find it?
Oh, that's really easy. So go to sourdough.co.uk. On the top tab, Sue, there's a tab called Learn.
Yeah.
If you scroll down to studies, all of the database, all of the 440 of them are actually in there. I've got a pile of them. We print them off and I file them in the library upstairs. I have a library. If you are press, and this is really important, it's only if you are press or if you are a student, you can actually contact me. There's a press inquiry page, and I will give you an access to the back end, which then makes it completely and utterly and totally searchable. So what you're then able to do is, for example, put in amylopectin or bifidobacterium, and you will find all of the studies in that listing, so you can sift through them. So it's an open source. Initially, Dr. Amrita Vijay helped me set it up. She was actually one of Tim Spector's researchers for a few years. And I felt that it was really important to actually be able to stand next to the research that we used as evidence-based, because I felt that so many of the books that are out there are making claims on gut health. And I think that you really have to, the scientist in me wants to, I have to teach, the medical profession as part of what I do. So when I make a statement, for example, about more bioavailability of minerals, I have to be able to actually back that up with the studies. So it's meticulously researched, and all of those studies are there. And if anybody ever wants those studies and wants to delve further, I also have a Dropbox with all 400 of them in, which will keep you very busy. But if someone was a journalist and wanted to come and, social distancing right now, but the place is 2/3 of an acre here, you can go up to the library. I have them all printed out. I have a great coffee machine. Come and eat your heart out, because I'm really happy to carry on baking down here while someone reads them.
Where's that?
It's in Northamptonshire. It's about an hour from London, but I also have a team here as well, Sue. So I have our in-house GP. She's a functional medic. She also works for the NHS. Her name is Dr. Alex Davidson. She's also at the disposal of any of the food writers. I also have Dr. Elizabeth Phillips, who is a neuroscientist. She's phenomenally brilliant. I think she actually, I can't remember if it's Oxford or Cambridge she used to lecture at, because my mind is gone, but one of the two universities. She's going to kill me after this. But she's actually a neuroscientist as well as a nutritionist, who's also in our in-house team. We also have this absolutely amazing man called Miguel Matias, who in the next few months will be Dr. Miguel Matias as well. He's just finishing his PhD. He is one of the directors in charge of research at Atlas Biomed, who are a gut health testing, gut testing company. And without that kind of support here of working with these kind of scientists, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. So I have a very strong medical support system, and we are literally about 3 or 4 days away from launching the videos with all of the research of the specific microbes that changed in each person's gut and the feedback to them. It's about 45-minute feedback from our panel of medical experts to each person who participated during their diet intervention with this book, where we look at their changes in mood, we look at the changes in their specific gut microbiome. We had changes in microbes such as Akkermansia increasing, which is associated inversely with obesity and heart disease. We had bifidobacterium increasing, we had weight loss, we had drops in blood pressure and cholesterol. We had a phenomenal, an extraordinary approach to both the mental and physical changes in the gut and the mind during the dietary intervention. And we've treated them as single case studies. And all of those studies have been applied, and we tested it, and I'm about to launch that as on those videos of the feedback on the website as well, alongside the studies.
So that they're going to be easily findable on your website.
Yes, yeah.
What will they be listed under as such?
So at the moment, if you go to learn, the bottom tab is called case studies, and the case studies will be there, and all of the participants have agreed to talk to anyone in the press about their experience, because they were, as part of the intervention study, I wanted people who were happy to talk openly about their experience in eating to nourish both the gut and the mind. And it was very important that we actually openly share this knowledge now, not have it behind closed doors, not be secret about it, not keep the basic recipe secret. I think it's time that people reappraise their approach. And I think the club has got more advanced recipes on, more detail on the whys, but these things are not necessary to bake the recipes. And you'll find that I probably upset my board of directors with how generous I am, because I'm more political than I am caring much about, I do it because I really believe that we have to push forward with change in the way we approach our baking.
Because you mentioned that you had these gut microbial transplants, I've been
Don't ask me how I got it done, because it's not very food related.
Now, what does that involve?
I knew you were going to ask that. It was done medically at a clinic where they screened the donors. A gut microbiome transplant is essentially a poop transplant. When you actually...
What transplant?
A poo transplant.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, it's not food. Once you've had your gut microbiome completely wiped and destroyed, the only way that you can restore it is through transplantation. Now, what I would say to people is this: the home transplantation is extremely risky. You are not in a position to scan for viruses or anything else, and so this was done in a clinic. They essentially collect and clean the donations. So it's done in a centrifugal cleaner in a laboratory. It's then stored for 6 months cryogenically, frozen, where the person who's donated has been monitored for any health issues. And then you attend the clinic and you have to make sure that your colon is clean. They then use a very small rubber tube, which is the same ones they use on neonatal babies. And to be fair, so I've had 3 children, so this was not really much of a challenge for me. And they actually insert that all the way up to the top of where the top of your large kind of intestine, and then they dump it basically by you using the syringe. You then have to be like, you lie on the bed, you are massaged one way to make it go one way. You're then slightly tipped up, slightly upside down. You then lie sideways down on your right side and have it anyway. And then you have to hold that for as long as possible, during which time the microbes, if you are lucky, actually take up residence in your gut. And the first time I had my first gut transplant, I had a massive, huge immune reaction. I came home and spent nearly 7 or 8 days in bed. I just had this huge, obviously for my body, it was like it had been invaded. I'm happy to report that after 12 transplants, my gut microbiome is now up at almost 70% diversity. So from going from less than 2% diversity to 70% diversity, I know that I stand a chance of not contracting a non-communicable disease, or actually much less of a chance. There were some very serious changes that happened almost instantly from the gut microbial transplant. One of them was quite extraordinary. I'd spent my whole life as an owl, writing until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was like a light switch, and I suddenly was a lark. And from almost 2 days into my gut transplant, someone reset my body clock, which was bizarre, but I was told that was due to the microbes then being able to make melatonin effectively. And I go to bed quite early now, and I get up at 4 or 4:30. So it was like someone almost switched my clock 24 hours. My asthma almost has completely gone. I virtually don't use my inhaler anymore. And my food intolerances are almost non-existent now. And my mental health, I would say, has drastically improved. I believe that the transplant reduced my inflammation and has probably given me another 20 years of life, which I will use to bake with.
They do something like clearing you out and then giving you a different diet. Wouldn't that work in any way?
Well, it's a nice idea, and I did try it for a year under supervision. But what they explained to me was that after 57 lots of antibiotics, basically it was like a nuclear bomb had been gone off multiple times in my digestive system. They think and they believe that each time that you have antibiotics, it can reduce your diversity by about 15%. And what happens, as it's been explained to me, is that it's like a layer, and you take out one and all of the microbes underneath that feed off the leftovers of this strata then die as well. So what actually happened to me was that I was eating the most incredible food and probiotics, but they explained it was a bit like I had tended the soil and I was watering and weeding a garden that had no seeds in it. And so I could water it and I could hoe it and I could pick the weeds out and I could keep watering it, but there was nothing left to grow, Sue. At less than 2% diversity, 3 gut health experts described me in their own words as a walking miracle. I should have been very, very poorly and I wasn't. And the only reason I can give you is that I pre-digest almost everything. So I think because of my approach to food, with the fermentation, it was almost the only thing I could eat. And I've sat, I think one of the reasons I'm so passionate about it is because I've sat and cried not knowing what to eat. And the other thing that happened was I just lost weight. I mean, I'm sure Charlotte will probably say now, just looking at me, you would say, well, Vanessa, you look different. Well, it's because my weight just has just slowly just come down, and I'm not eating any differently. It was like I became more balanced, and it took a long time for the microbes to settle. And I'm very, very grateful to the people who did this because, well, I have energy again, and it was a gift, and I was very privileged to be given this gift. It's extraordinary to have been in this position, and also knowing how to feed and nourish those new microbes was part of really understanding how these prebiotics work, which microbes they feed, what metabolites they produce. And that is, I guess, one of the reasons the book is so thorough in this approach.
Two very quick questions, because I don't want to keep you. One is, how do they test for these this percentage of microbes? Presumably that's what comes out of you, and you
would have to ask Professor Tim Spector, who's the head of epidemiology at King's College London. Tim, I'm sure, would be delighted to go into the RN16S can't remember the gut microbial testing off the top of my head, but it's basically DNA sequencing for microbes, and there are many companies that do it, but the one I work with is called Atlas Biomed. They're a superb company. I like them because they don't just test you, they then make suggestions of what to eat to improve the diversity of your gut. It's not impossible to improve diversity. There are ways that you can eat to improve diversity and to improve, but what you're really looking at, Sue, is you're actually looking, and this is really important, it's too limiting to say that there are good microbes and bad microbes, okay? What you're actually looking for is balance. It's like any ecosystem. And what happens is that when you nourish the good microbes, they flourish. They basically outcompete the pathogens. And what you're looking at outcompeting is the negative microbes, the ones that produce we call them like lipopolysaccharides and inflammatory substances. And by nourishing the good ones, you're essentially elbowing out and pushing out the bad ones, the pathogens. And so the approach is actually not always about killing the bad ones, it's about nourishing the good ones. And it's also about having a balance and having variety in your diet, so that you actually, that there's no one microbes and it's moving all the time. And every time you eat something, some will flourish and some will go to the, will reduce. And I think this is really important, that we don't find that ourselves in a situation, a pharmacological situation, where they want you to pop a microbial pill because this is good or this is bad. For example, I talked about Akkermansia. Of course, Akkermansia is absolutely inversely associated with obesity and heart disease, but a lot of Akkermansia is associated with multiple sclerosis. So like I said, there are these very strange relationships that go on in the gut that we are really only at the very beginning of really thoroughly understanding. And people like Tim Spector and so many other, Rob Dunn, who researches in sourdough, John Cryan, Felice Jecker, these people are at the forefront of their research. And what I am able to do, I know all of these people, I know most of them personally as people who I interact with on a weekly basis. And what happens is that I am fortunate enough to have the knowledge, the education, the interest, the background, and the position to actually translate this work into food, into a recipe book. And that has been part of my life's work, to actually bring this knowledge to the forefront and share it.
Amazing.
Yeah, good.
Amazing.
So,
did you have another question, Sue?
Well, the only other thing was you mentioned 3 people at the start that were very influential, but you've mentioned so many names that you probably don't remember which ones they were, but maybe
I think Felice Jecker, Tim Spector, and John Cryan. I think they're in the book. I think that if you start with those, Tim's just written Spoon-Fed. I think if there's anyone who is beginning their journey, I think you go back to his first book. It's called The Diet Myth. Tim is very modest about the way he talks about what he's done, but he actually was he's one of the most, in fact I believe he is the most cited scientist in the world. The fact that he wrote my foreword, I'm still pinching myself because I was just so delighted. And he wrote such an eloquent and beautiful foreword. Felice's work has actually proven that diet can alleviate depression. That's incredible. If you think about it, if you find me dead at the bottom of the garden, Sue, it's because the pharmacological industry has killed me. They're going to realise I'm going to affect their profits. But I believe that we need to stop looking first at a drug system, and I'm hoping in the next few weeks to be talking to the government. I know I've got some appointments to hopefully discuss affecting food policy around bread and the way we bake. I'd like to see some changes on an industrial level. I believe that we are now in a position to drop the Chorleywood bread making process. It's had its day. It's not post-war anymore. I believe we're in a position to change the way we mill our flour, to stop it from being monoculture. The days of Triticum mastivitum being our only ingredient in flour should be over. I've shared this knowledge determinedly and openly because I have, the evidence is it's not just my evidence, this is evidence that's right there at the end of our noses. So we just have to look for it and we just have to understand it and apply it. And it's time to change things.
There's a guy that's a member of the guild that's very much into food policy. Do you remember what his name is?
Is that Gavin Wren?
Henry?
Yes.
He's on the committee.
Oh, right, because you might want to sort of tie in with each other.
Say his name again, Charlotte.
Gavin Wren.
Okay, Gavin will hopefully
U-R-E-N.
So I was very lucky because Sheila Dillon wrote the foreword to my second book. I have worked for the past 7 or 8 years as a contributor to BBC Radio 4 food programme with Dan Saladino, and Sheila's been very she's just amazing. She's just an extraordinary woman who, I love the way that Sheila and Dan Saladino really shake things up. I mean, they've been very influential and incredibly supportive of my work, as well as has Tim Spector. So I haven't done this on my own, Sue. I think my point is I haven't done this on my own. I've far from done this on my own. I've had bakers like Adam Pagor, Richard Hart of Hagbury in Copenhagen. I've had people like Michael James from Tivioli Road Bakery come and help me develop. My name is on the front cover, but basically I am part of a community. I am part of a collective of people. And I think that I won't take the credit for the whole thing. I have pulled it all together, but I am helped by people who want to see change and who are doing extraordinary things themselves. And I'm very humble for that.
That's amazing. Vanessa, I'm afraid we are running out of time for our session today. I would just like to, this is going to be available for all members on the YouTube channel, and we will share it so that anyone who hasn't been able to join tonight can. Just to recap, I would love to thank you so much for your time in coming to speak to us tonight about your book. And the Guild would like to congratulate you on, another amazing book. So for anyone who hasn't got it, the Sourdough School Sweet Baking, Nourishing the Gut and Mind is out now, published by Kyle Books. And Vanessa, you have very generously offered lots of support and discounts for members, and they went in our September newsletter, which all members will have, and also they are available through our website in the members area. Log on, search for member discounts, and they are there. And it's incredibly generous of you to do that and to offer that, so thank you very, very much for that, as well as your time tonight. Anyone who has any more questions can follow you on and your team online and on social media as well. And thank you again for your time, and to everyone else who has joined. So thank you, Vanessa.
I've had wine, candlelight, and got to talk about my favourite subject, baking in the gut. So thank you so much for hosting me.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. And the book will fly, no doubt, and I can't wait to finish reading it and bake from it. It really feels like a book to sort of sit down and give time to read before starting, because it really is something very, very different and unique. So congratulations, and we wish you every success with it.
Thanks, Charlotte.
Thanks again, Vanessa, and thanks to everyone for joining. Take care.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
Charlotte, did you get everything you needed?
I absolutely did, and thank you so much.
I can't believe how dark it's gotten here.
I know. So nice to talk to you, Vanessa, and thank you again for everything, and thank you for the copy of this. It's spectacular.
I'm really glad. I wasn't sure how it was going to go down, but it's I think Kyle Books are brave, and they themselves they've allowed me free reign, Charlotte, and I think that's really very brave. I think I'm very, very lucky to have Judith as my editor. I think something that you don't very often get as a food writer is carte blanche to write what you want.
Absolutely.
So that's very useful. Is Sue still there?
No, I think everyone's gone now.
No, if you just let anyone know. Truthfully, Charlotte, if anyone wants to write a story or wants to know, I don't even really charge people to go on the club. If there's a journalist, and they're doing something, or they want to change things, they just get given a club membership. I don't think that I would stop anyone from being a member if they just wanted to learn from the guild. So if you find someone who wants to learn but perhaps isn't in a financial position to do so right now, then I'm at liberty to give people a membership. So don't let anyone miss out because they're having a run of it. So
thank you. That's a really generous offer, because I'm acutely aware of how difficult things are for a lot of people at the moment, and If you don't mind, I might just mention it's Jonathan as well, because sometimes he hears from people, you know. And
I just think that if you've got someone who's struggling and you want someone to, you know, I'm really happy to support. It doesn't, you know, the running costs are the running costs. It doesn't cost me any more to give somebody a membership. So if you need raffle prizes, you need to do anything, you need to raise funds, or if there's anything I can do, you just give me a shout. I mean, you know, the Guild has supported me on many occasions. And it is really nice to get, you know, to do something with you guys. So yeah. So what are you doing at the moment before you head off, before I call you accidentally?
I'm actually on holiday at the moment in Scotland. So
whereabouts?
I'm in Perthshire at the moment.
Right, okay. You look like Southwest France. It looks like the brick in my house in France.
I know, it's gorgeous. We've literally just arrived, so I've got supper in the oven. I should probably check on, but it's just nice to get away.
Is Xanthi still the chair? Is that you? I thought are you?
We've had a bit of a change. I am now chair.
I was going to say, I did a thing on Instagram saying I was going to speak to the chair, and then I thought, oh shit.
Yes.
Maybe yes,
no.
maybe no.
All change. Yes. Xanthi is no longer, Xanthi was the president and now was handed over to Orlando. Honestly, don't worry, because I got this wrong all the time until I was actually involved in it. And then I have been chair as of the last month, so it's all changed. Finding my feet.
Well, I think that's amazing. You're going to be able to support so many people.
Thank you. Well, as you said, you know, what you were saying about, you know, your generous offer just now, you know, I think as a community, there is so much we can all do to help each other right now. And it feels more important than ever. And, you know, you've been very generous in everything you've offered the Guild over the last few months. So thank you.
Still the same old me. It's at the end of the day, if I can help or do anything, you just need to let me know.
Thanks. And likewise.
It's I've known you a long time, and I'm actually really, doesn't it seem mad that we were just at that start, just all those blogging all those years ago.
I know, absolutely. And you know, it's just, I'm full of admiration for everything you've done, and you know, I appreciate everything you've done for me personally and everything you've offered to the Guild, so thank you. And
that's cool. Right, go.
Good luck with it all. Take care. Thanks again.
Bye, lovely.
Nice to talk.